Ready, guys? You ready? All right. Guys, we are back in session for our budget workshop. We have Judge Wynn with us here today. Thank you, sir, for being here. He represents the Superior Court. Let me grab Brittany right quick.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Sorry about this, sir. Thank you for being
No, that's
here.
no problem. Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir.
Our Superior Courts continue to operate. We are having jury trials on a regular basis, regular monthly basis, to try to keep our cases moving. As you all know, we didn't have jury trials for a year when the governor declared the statewide emergency, and Chief Justice Melton of the State Supreme Court declared the statewide judicial emergency, putting a pause on jury trials for a year. But we have been back up and running with jury trials since April of 2021, and we continue to operate those, trying to move our cases through as quickly and as efficiently as possible. We continue to operate our accountability courts. We have drug court. We have resource court, which is our mental health court. Judge McCamey presides over our veterans court, and our parental accountability court, which is our child support court. I preside over the drug court, and we serve citizens in both Newton County and Walton County. Judge Zahn presides over the resource court here in Newton County, and Judge Foster presides over the resource court in Walton County. And I should note that Judge McCamey's court, Veterans Court, serves citizens in both Newton County and Walton County. So it's been a good year. Our budget remains essentially the same as last year. We did reduce our line item for I believe it was jury expenses by $10,000 because it was $10,000 because it looks like in tracking that we were not going to hit the $90,000 that we had requested for that. The only other increase in line item that you might note is one other for other contracted services. There is a small increase there to pay the person who conducts our divorcing parents seminar. Parents with children who go through a divorce are required to complete the divorcing parents seminar to help them understand the impact of divorce on their children. And so we increased that slightly to give that person a raise, and she had not had a raise in several years. And so the only increase that is noted is that one, but we more than offset that, I think, by reducing our request for juror fees. Do want to ask that if for some unforeseen reason we start bumping up close to that budget amount, we come back and ask to amend the budget for the juror fees, because we just got to pay the jurors, and you got to have the jury trials. But I'm available for questions if you have any.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Sanders?
Yes. I always said that the judges need to be doing our budgets, because even last year I was amazed about how y'all save money in the budget. So I just want to commend you on that. I don't even have any questions. I'm looking at the numbers, and there's really not a huge expense. You actually saved money from 2022. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanders. And we appreciate the board's support of the court system. We've always had a good working relationship with the board, and we're very appreciative of that.
Commissioner Mason?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to echo that. Looking at your budget, I wanted to say thank you for saving $43,143 on your budget. So that's very, very commendable and very helpful for the overall county as well. And we want to do everything we can to support our judicial system as much as we possibly can. So thank you for those savings as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Mason.
You're welcome.
Anyone have anything else?
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
Greatly appreciate you. Got, he's coming next. He ain't here yet. Trying to get him on the phone. No, you next.
Do I?
You next.
You make it start, you mean to wait?
No, we're gonna, yeah.
Give me a second, because I just walked and took
Yeah.
stairs and I realized how out of shape I am. But my pants weren't as fancy as this guy's pants, so I don't know if y'all saw those.
Wow.
How are you? No, I just handed it out instead of doing it on the screen, just.
Thank you for being here today, sir,
Yeah.
and presenting your budget. It's on you.
Okay. Well, thank y'all for having me. I obviously want to answer any questions you guys have at all. I'll start just, and obviously I know y'all have what finance and HR and everybody provides, but I also wanted to provide some additional information. That's why I have this handout of sorts for everybody. And really the main thing of the budget, you know, what we always seek to do is prosecute cases effectively, efficiently, and ethically. And we've been very busy. I think y'all know how busy the court system has been. Sorry, I walked over here and took the steps, and I'm out of shape, so give me a second sometimes to catch my breath. The age catches up with you quick. But, you know, some of these things that I have on here are some of the main concerns of the DA's office. You know, retention and hiring is always one of those. We've done very well over the last couple of years with retention and hiring. The vacancies we've had, we've been able to fill. We have had some situations where we've had people where we've made job offers and they've said no because of money. And I understand that's always going to be an issue. It is what it is. But you know, it's people who are investigators in other jurisdictions and things like that. I do point out is one of the things that I think we've been lucky with in this office. And I think that is just the hard work of the office and the people we have, where it is a great office to work. I did lose in 2021 4 attorneys over the course of the year. And I think on page 3, you'll see, I kind of point that out, why we lost those people. And it's hard to say anything other than money was the reason. And again, I understand we work for, you know, it's a taxpayer-funded agency that I run, obviously. I understand that, but I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of some of the issues, and I think y'all are, because y'all are looking to hire a county attorney, and that starting salary would be $185,000, which is, just to be frank, about 3 times more than some of the ADAs who are trying murders and rapes and child molestations are what they're making. But I'll just give you examples of the 4 people that left. Obviously, I'm not naming them. I'm just telling you, we had one person leave to go to the DeKalb County DA's office, that by leaving, she raised her salary by about 16%. We had 3 go into private practice. And one of the issues, I'll tell you, this last year for DA's offices across the state is that private practice law firms did not hire people a lot during 2020 because of the pandemic. Well, they made up for it in 2021. They went on just an absolute hiring spree. And the issue, it wasn't just people looking, it was they had hired headhunting companies to go out and find people that had trial experience. And that's what happened with some of the people that left my office, is they weren't looking, but people called. And you'll see on page 3, the 3 examples. One of them, their salary is $85,000 plus a bonus at the new law firm. That's a 42% raise from what that person was making, plus before a bonus. The other person was an $85,000 salary plus an automatic $15,000 a year bonus, which makes that person, their new job was a 66% raise. And we had somebody leave that is getting paid $110,000 a year plus a bonus. So that's an 83% raise plus whatever bonus it is. Those 3 people, one had 3 years experience, the other 2 had 2 years experience. That's hard to compete with. I mean, people do this job because they want to do the right thing, but wanting to do the right thing when you're getting paid $60,000 less than you get paid somewhere else is a hard thing to keep up with. It just is. And obviously, I know you guys know this, but I just point out that, you know, if you or some loved one or someone you knew was a victim of some serious crime, you'd want someone that's very competent in their job and make sure they know what they're doing, how to try these cases. And I think we do a great job of that. I then ran into the issue, which was a statewide issue, of I received 3 resumes over the next 5 months. I interviewed all of those people. None of them were good choices, and so I did not hire those people. I have since, in the last 2-3 weeks, hired people. One is graduating law school in May, so she won't start until May, and one that we just offered a job to this week is coming from the Houston County DA's office. He's actually moving up here, and so he'll be starting, I think, hopefully April 11th. And then investigators, that's the other issue too we've run into. We've had people who, they apply, we set a resume, they talk about salary, and then we have an issue of we can't even come close to those salaries. And that's not just other law enforcement agencies such as sheriff's offices and police departments, it's also other DA's offices. From Rockdale, DeKalb, Gwinnett, things like that, where they're just getting paid significantly more than the investigators here. I say all that is we still, morale's great in the office. We are so busy. I'm gonna get to that about trials and everything. But essentially the main things as far as personnel that I'm asking for, and I've been before you already about these grant-funded positions. I received ARPA money through the state to fund an investigator position and an investigative assistant position. I'm asking the board to agree to fund those whenever the grant is up. And that's sort of a strange request because it's going to be a bit of a probably contingency request because those grants are calendar year grants. I can ask to renew it for up to 2 more years. I fully intend and plan on applying again to have it funded for the calendar year of 2023 and 2024. But I'm asking the board to fund those and go ahead and agree to fund those positions whenever that grant is up. And that could be as early as this December 31st of this year, which would be about half the fiscal year, or exactly half the fiscal year that it would need to be funded. A couple reasons for that I'll get to in a second, but I just want to go through the other things I'm asking for is to reclassify a victim advocate into a position where she's the clear number 2 person in that division. We have 6 victim advocates. We set a record of the most TPOs we've ever dealt with, I think, by the 2nd week of November last year in a calendar year. So we blew past the amount of TPOs we've ever had. And I think a lot of that has to do with just more crime. It also has to do with we have more cases where law enforcement decides, well, we're not going to arrest somebody, we're just going to send them to get a TPO, when they really should have just frankly made an arrest. You know, COVID didn't help that. People were stuck at their homes with people, sometimes bad relationships, and they need a TPO. And then we're asking for an additional admin staff position. I do want to kind of go through just caseload so you guys are educated and understand what's going on in the county as far as crime. On page 6, I go through the last 3 years of the number of cases opened here and in Walton County, so you can kind of compare those things. Obviously, 2020 is a bit of an outlier. I mean, the amount of cases dropped significantly between 2019 and 2020. I'll tell you that's not because crime somehow went down. The sheriff's office, for a lot of reasons, and very good reasons, had to stop arresting people and taking people to the jail because of COVID. And I tell you later in this slideshow, I think when I checked this morning, from January 1st, 2020 until today, the number of outstanding warrants for that time period is 1,898. There's almost 1,900 outstanding warrants for the last 2 years plus 3 months. And a lot of that is because people were given warrants, hey, look, we're going to take a warrant, you have to turn yourself in at some point when all this COVID stuff is over. Those cases are going to come to us at some point, and hopefully some point soon. My understanding is they're kind of opening up to old school of way of doing business at the sheriff's office next month. So I think that's going to continue to grow. I also point out that as far as our office, I'm not asking anywhere near what I'm asking for in Walton because this body has done great things for our county and our office over the last 5 years and grown our office. We have the number of prosecutors we need, and so I'm not asking for any more attorneys like I am in Walton County because we need to get to that level in Walton County as well. But if you look at, and I'd ask any of you just to drive by sometimes past the courthouse after 5 or on weekends, people's cars who you're going to see in that parking lot are my attorneys. They're working way past 5, working on weekends, working nights, things like that. Just some of a good example is, you know, my chief assistant, Miss Dowley, she tried 2 murder cases last year. I think she was 31 and 33 weeks pregnant when she tried 2 murder cases. We had an outstanding year. We tried a ton of cases, and I point out how many trials we actually had in 2021. Trials didn't resume until April 19th. We had no trials from March of 2020 until April 19th of 2021. And that's a problem. We went over, you know, a year without trials. That's going to be a difficult catch-up. And so we had 2 trial weeks in the month of April, and then none in May. And then we made up for it. We had 20 weeks of trial over the next 7 months. And I looked at it, the only weeks we did not have trial were either holidays, such as the 4th of July week, Labor Day week, Thanksgiving, Christmas, things like that, or when the judges or my office were gone for a week-long conference that happens every year. So there's only 1 week out of the last 7 months that didn't have trials that wasn't because of a holiday or things like that. And I honestly, my understanding is I think Ms. Hayes asked the judges, my people need a week off, essentially. And they did, everyone did. But that's how busy we were. We typically, before COVID, would have 23, 24 weeks of trial a year. We had 20 weeks in 7 months. So far in 2022, we started the year a little slow. We had 2 weeks of trial set for January that were canceled because of, I think it was Omicron at that point. And then from February, the first week of February through May 10th, we have 10 weeks of trial. Starting next week is the first of 5 straight weeks of trials. And that is just us continuing to catch up. And you'll see on page 11, I kind of go through some of the bigger cases and other issues we have. We currently have 25 murder defendants with open cases. I say murder defendants, it's not 25 separate murder cases. There's sometimes co-defendants, but those are separate defendants, separate cases that we have to deal with. I say plus 10, I didn't really mean that. I meant 10 of those 25 are in post-conviction, meaning appeals. Obviously, just because someone's convicted at a jury trial doesn't mean our office stops working on it. There are motions for new trial in the trial court, and then there's appeals that could take years. We just had a death penalty case that now Judge Zahn tried in 2012 that I argued at the Georgia Supreme Court last year that just got affirmed. So they take time, not usually that long. Death penalty cases are a little different. We also had felony sex crime defendants. We had 21 in 2020 and 33 in 2021. But the big issue that I really want to talk about, and I think you guys have seen this in the news and are just aware of it, is that the number of shooting cases, gun crimes, continue to increase. Myself, the sheriff, the chief of police in Covington, and others in all 3 of our staffs met 2 Fridays ago to discuss that and how to best address this. And really it's going to, come down to working together is what a lot of it is. That we're going to continue to meet and continue to do what we can to address these things. Because a lot of them are drive-by shootings, a lot of them are younger defendants, young victims, people shooting into houses, and frankly, sometimes they're shooting at the wrong house, and that's terrifying. These are innocent people who have done nothing wrong, people just start shooting indiscriminately into their house. Covington, I'll tell you, is the city, within the city limits. For all of 2021, they had 22 what they just call drive-by shooting cases. However, the vast majority of those were from September through December of last year, and they've had 13 so far this year. That is a huge increase, and it's a scary increase because those crimes are just scary. They are. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm asking, as I've told you all before, asking to have those grant-funded positions, the county to agree to fund those. However, the best way to say that is, I'm not sure, like I said, it's sort of a contingency because it could be no funding needed this year because the state ARPA funds could pick that up again. But those are important. These cases are becoming more and more difficult. We often get cell tower records, cell phone records, social media records. We have cases where we have binders and binders of people's Facebook and Instagram records that are, we have to give discovery, all the evidence over to the defense attorney. I have to tell them, hey, you need to bring a 128 gig flash drive for me to give you everything. The amount of evidence nowadays, the amount of video is overwhelming at times. I will also add, and this was an update I think I had informed y'all recently, another time I was here a couple months ago. I went back and looked from January of 2021 until February, because I don't have this month's data yet. So that's 14 months. We had 64 what the Department of Corrections calls as validated gang members that paroled out to Newton County addresses in those 14 months. And I understand Walton is a different county, and Walton is next door to us, had 59 gang members released to their county over the same period. They still come commit crimes here in Newton County. Just because the county line is there, people aren't ignoring or just saying, well, I can't cross into Newton County or I can't cross into Rockdale County. That doesn't happen that way. So that's the big reason why we need, as I told you guys, this grant-funded investigator position is going to allow me to have an investigator whose focus is on gun and gang crimes. I've disagreed sometimes with some leadership of some of the other agencies and law enforcement because they'll want to say, well, it's just these small groups of people who are committing these crimes together. It's not necessarily gangs. Well, small groups of people committing crimes together sometimes sounds like it could be a gang issue. It's not always a gang issue. Sometimes it's, I hate to say it, it's a bit of a lack of concern of human life sometimes. People, you'll talk to people who had been in gangs for 20, 30, 40 years that are hardened, have been in and out of prison numerous times, And they're terrified of kids nowadays, because back then, when they were 20 years old, they'd get in a fight, someone would win, someone would lose, they'd both walk away. Nowadays, you get an insult on social media and you drive by someone's house and shoot up their house, because somebody said something mean on social media. That's absurd. But it's still something we got to put these victims first, and that's why I'm asking for those positions to be funded. The victim advocate position, my victim services director has been in this office for, 20, 25 years or so. Ms. Smith, Leslie's been doing this for a long, long time. She has a lot of duties besides being a victim advocate. She manages the other people. She also does a lot of the VOCA and other grant-funded budgets. She also does all the travel for all of our witnesses and things like that. And her having a number 2 person is just something that's needed. She's also in charge of our GCIC, our criminal background checks on people, all of those regulations and rules we have to follow. She's in charge of all of that. And so I'm asking, and I think what I initially had asked for was this number 2 person to go up a grade. So I have my victim advocates are all, I think, at grade 14. My victim service director is at grade 15. And so I wanted to have a number 2 person. HR had said, well, the issue with that is it doesn't make sense to have a number 2 person in the same grade as a number 1 person. I get that to a certain extent. If that's the case, then I just want my director bumped up to grade 16, my number 2 person grade 15, and other victim advocates to be grade 14. And I think where they would fall on that, it would be an increase of maybe $4,000 a year for that. It's something that I believe is just very needed for a small amount of money. The additional admin staff that we're asking for is because of the amount of court. We also have 3 new judges. They're getting in their own way of doing things, but a lot of times they obviously don't do things as fast as the judges have been doing for 20 years. Court takes longer. We have more court dates. We're here sometimes till 7:30 at night running court, and then sometimes we don't even finish, and so we come back the next day. And our admin staff is having to we do all the calendars, all the subpoenas, all the notices for criminal court. I know some jurisdictions, the clerk's office does that. That's not how it's been done here. We send all of those. We create the calendars, every notice for every criminal calendar, every trial, all those things we do. And it's just become overwhelming for the admin staff that I have. Our county is growing. You drive around, you see new subdivisions popping up. There's good things of growth. There's also difficult things of growth. There's going to be more crime. Sadly, we are not, and I'm not saying we're some scary county to live in. We're not. But y'all know, crime is going up everywhere. And I think waiting for it to become even worse before trying to address it isn't the way to do it. And I think we just need to grow a little bit too. Like I said, we're not asking for a ton more on that. Some of the additional things I want to talk to you about is, our pretrial diversion program. I think the amount of money brought in has kind of gone down a little bit. That's not because the number of cases have decreased. They've actually increased. I've increased the amount of cases that are eligible for pretrial diversion by a lot. Those are just cases that, look, these cases, someone messed up, they did something wrong, they don't deserve to have someone follow them the rest of their life. But what I've done is our investigators were doing all of the work, supervising these people. That was impossible. That was way too much work for them. So I've shifted that to the misdemeanor probation company that services our misdemeanor probationers. Now, obviously, there's still an entry fee into the program, but we're not collecting a fee for supervision. They are. So the number of cases has grown, but the amount of money being brought in has gone down a little bit, I believe. Our accountability courts, drug court, mental health court, veterans court continue to be honored as state model courts where they help train new courts that are popping up across the state. And so that's obviously the main thing I was talking about was the personnel budget. I'll talk a little bit about some of the non-personnel costs. I know my budget is personnel costs take up a huge, huge portion of that. I will say is that with that, I think people tend to forget that we are the biggest. We're not a private law firm, I get that, but if you compare us to any law firm around here, I have 24 assistants between the 2 counties. We are drastically bigger than any law firm anywhere around here. Right? So we are a very big organization. We've reduced some of the line items based on savings within the office, maintenance agreements. Some of that is, I'll be honest, paying for a new big printer sometimes it saves us money because these old printers, the amount of cost and wear and tear on these things. My office gets annoyed with me at times. I tell them if they're printing more than 10 pages, they have to print it to the main printer because that just saves, your desk printer cost for printing 100 pages is so much more than printing to the large printer. We've gone down some of their other services and rental equipments. Some of the things that have really gone up, and I'm on page 18 now, really has to do with the increase in our size of office. Telephone and cell phone costs have gone up. Postage, we have more court. That's definitely gone up. General operating supplies, I think we asked for a little bit more on that. Uniforms, small equipment, again, those are things just because our office has grown. The big things as far as increasing costs, travel, dues and fees, and education. Every attorney in my office, and I showed earlier in here that the way it's set up is we have 13 ADAs who are here full-time in Newton. There are 10 in Walton. Then we have 2, myself and another senior ADA that go back and forth between the 2 counties. But all of those attorneys here, the 13 that are here, they have to get 12 hours of continuing legal education every year. Our investigators have to get 20 hours of post-credits every year. And those costs are going up. PAC, which is the State Prosecuting Attorneys Council, used to provide, they still provide all the training that we need. They used to provide most of it for free to us because of budget reasons of their own. They're not doing that anymore. We're having to pay either, what used to be free is now $250 for a week of training, or what used to be $200 is now $400. And travel's gone up, obviously, but the number of people, and so that's why we're having to increase those. I think this week is exactly 75% of the fiscal year, and we're looking good. I think our total budget was somewhere around 71-ish%. So we're doing well with that. A couple of things we're going to blow past, probably, obviously, witness fees. We're already at 86% of the budget. I think Commissioner Sanders asked last year about why I increased the witness cost budget. And exactly what I said last year is the same thing. With COVID, trials being delayed, people move. And as I told you guys last year, we're smart about it. I'm not flying somebody back in from Connecticut to testify in a shoplifting from Walmart trial. We had one case that probably took up about 70% of our budget, was a child rape case that she disclosed 3 years after it happened. Her and her family had already moved to North Carolina. She had told her mom about it, had law enforcement in North Carolina, the victim's mom, the counselor, medical examination, and the forensic interviewer all were from different states, or from outside of Georgia. We had to fly, but it's a child rape case. If we got to spend something for somebody to do something like that, we're going to do it. But so I increased that some because we still have some other big cases of people who are out of state. I don't know if I really even need to talk about gas. I'm sure y'all will hear that, or I've already heard that cost is going through the roof. We're at 135% of our gas budget already this year. Part of that is one, cost, but also, again, that's travel. Our investigators for a trial a couple weeks ago was a kidnapping trial. A victim, there's victims who are not situated where they can just drive and pick up and drive themselves to court. Sometimes we have to go pick them up. And we had to do that. We had to go pick up someone from Warner Robins or Perry, somewhere down in Houston County a couple weeks ago. Books, we literally, one of my ADAs was in court trying to tell Judge Wynn what the statute was, and she realized she was looking at a code book from like 2017. So I've increased the budget for books this year. That's something obviously I think will just be a one-time thing that'll go back down next year. A couple of the big things we did, the old jail, we had an old archive file room in there that was an absolute disaster. It was black mold, water damaged. We had things of paper that turned into bricks because of water damage. We've finally gotten everything out of there. So we have nothing over there now. We have everything underneath in our storage area on the main courthouse, but we had ServPro come in and dehumidify everything so that we don't have any environmental issues over there. So we got that taken care of. I think that was really about it that I wanted to talk to you guys about. At the end, I kind of put some things that may continue to be issues in the future, just training and gas costs, electronic file storage. That's not for this year to deal with in the budget. At some point down the road, though, we have to keep everything for 25 years if it's a felony. The amount of body cam, if we have a murder case, 7, 8, 9 deputies show up, have their body cam running for an hour or two, the amount of space that takes up is overwhelming. We're going to have to deal with that at some point. We're dealing with it the best we can now with IT, but that cost is going to keep going up and up and up. But that's really, I know that's a lot to say, and I know I talk fast, so I apologize. But I'm here to answer any questions you guys have. I just want to let you all know that the people in my office work unbelievably hard every single day, and I appreciate what y'all do for them.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Commissioner Henderson?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. C. Questions, well, I have 3 questions. First question, I think you were talking about the old historic jailhouse and the fact that I think you were saying that some of your staff or yourself went in and retrieved all those old books, whatever.
The old jail, not the old courthouse, but yes.
Yeah, the old jail, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Old jail, that's what I was trying to refer to. But make a long story short, and I guess this goes to the county manager, which have we removed all the asbestos out of the old jail? Or does anyone know?
I'm not aware of that, sir. I need to follow up
Okay,
on that.
so, and I said that just to say this. The reason why that building had been utilized was because of the asbestos.
Right.
And because the asbestos caused cancer, and because you didn't want people to go in there and be walking in. Even the time I did an interview, I think Mr. C gave me the key to go there. I was kind of scared because I know if you breathed enough of that stuff in you, you would have cancer. So I suggest that maybe you might want to have whoever did all the work in there to be tested.
And then that's why we end up paying to have ServPro come in and do that.
Okay.
Their expertise is in dealing with those sort of environments and things.
Okay.
That's why our folks went in there very
So-
briefly to see what it was and basically said, we're not doing that ourselves. I'm just being
Okay.
frank. And ServPro, I'll be honest, I mean, I thought it was
Yeah.
the price we paid for them to do what they did, I was shocked how
Right,
low
I
it
was-
was.
I was just concerned about it
Yeah,
because
no, I appreciate that.
of people, you know,
Yeah.
especially ones who may not know.
Mhm.
And that's not the only place that we have a problem with asbestos. The OR Cousin School, we also have asbestos problem in that particular whole school, almost the whole school there too as well. But it's, second question that I have is, you mentioned that, yourself and Chief of Police Stacy Cotton and, others, it talked about there maybe some of the young people shooting in the community, et cetera, which I think basically we are aware of that. So during y'all conversation, not really too much to me, was there any county facilities that there was any shooting or something that had been committed that you know of?
Honestly, we did not get into specifics of individual cases. We talked about, well, other than one that, because we had a recent court hearing on it, was somebody
Right.
who had been granted bond and we moved to revoke their bond because they were out doing things they weren't supposed to be doing. But beyond that, we didn't get into a
Right.
whole lot of specifics. A lot of the numbers, what we discussed, and we discussed
Right.
how to best go about going forward. So no, as far as county, off the top of my head, I don't know.
But it's something that myself personally
Yeah.
has been concerned with, especially since it was shooting. I think out at Denny Dobbs, and there was some shooting over at out in the Covington area. And I found out from talking to some law enforcement, and that most of the people committing the shootings and shooting it out in the public were people that didn't live in the community. And so, I just kind of want to bring it out. So, and last question that I'm asked is about the witness protection program.
Right.
I'll tell you something, I learned a little bit about that too. I learned that they bring people from other counties of Florida or wherever, and they may put them in Covington. And some of those people, at least the one that I had a contact with, didn't find out about it. They told me, and then, I kind of questioned around some of the law enforcement that they was on the witness protection program. Those folks raised more hell than the average person. In fact, I think when it ran out, they stopped getting the free rent and paying that big old high light bill here at the city of Covington. They moved back to Florida, and I was glad of that, because those are the ones that were keeping up a whole lot.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, that is a federally run program.
absolutely.
That they don't ask for my opinion about where someone should go
Right.
before they do it.
And they put them typically in the poor neighborhoods. And the last question that I want to ask is that about gangs. Now, my understanding about gangs, mostly anybody who has been incarcerated for a while, and if they come back, and I've had a son, I'm gonna be candid with you, if he got tattooed, then more than likely they're part of a gang. And the shooting that I have known over this way in town, some of the people I know, most of them I know, was affiliated with a gang. And that was something I told the commissioners. So let's get not in front, don't let them get in front of the curve, let us get behind the curve and kind of carry it off. Nobody listening. I said, we need a gang task force, we need to work with city and county and the state and federal, but nobody would hear me. But I'm gonna say this once again. If we don't get a handle on it now, it's gonna get even worse. Because all those folks are running down from Atlanta, setting up shop here in Newton County and the smaller counties, which they feel like are unprotected.
Right. And what I'll tell you is you're right that it is a problem that affects local areas, but it is a bigger issue. And I'll tell you, man, that's one of the things that I think is important in my position is I've got to have good relationships with chief of police, the sheriff, all that, but also the attorney general's office, because they had new legislation passed to allow them to do some gang prosecution. with the GMO, which is the Georgia Emergency Management, they have a Homeland Security division that I've spoken with as well about getting additional gang tracking software under a state grant that I'm working towards getting to help with here locally. So I'm trying all that. I'm not just here in front of y'all telling you it's a problem. I'm doing all these other things trying to get ahead of the problem, but also, I hate to say that, sometimes getting ahead of the problem also includes getting some funding to get ahead of the problem too. And also do that and get our folks that have tried these serious cases to also get them the training experience to try some of these and handle some of these gang cases too. So it's not just here locally. I mean, we're trying to work with people state and federally as well. I mean, we've met with ATF recently about some things as well. I'm not going to get into all of that, but it's not just a local thing. It's an everywhere thing.
Commissioner Sanders.
Thank you so much for your presentation. You know, I look at the numbers. So, almost a $229,000 increase. And I agree with you that we should be having individuals that are high paid, but unfortunately, DeKalb County and Gwinnett and Fulton, that's your top 3 counties that have populations almost 1 million. So we don't even have the tax dollars to support that. DeKalb County alone, one of my colleagues is a super commissioner. She has 300,000 just in her district by herself. That's twice as what Newton County actually has. So that's an issue that we have here. So hopefully we'll get more citizens to be able to increase some of the budgets. I did see in where we did get a vehicle for you in 2021, that was like 69,000. I said, you needed another one?
There was, yeah, so with the grant funded position, there was the new vehicle that I thought came from SPOST money, right. With the new grant funded position for the investigator, and I think we had kind of had to do it quickly because there's not vehicles available. But yes, the idea behind that is I've got one of my investigators sort of, I don't want to call her a fleet manager, but that's her job, is to keep track of those. One of our oldest vehicles has gotten to the point that I believe we need to have a newer one. And so the idea would be, I think we now have 7 or 8 total vehicles. I don't want to wait until we have to ask for 2 or 3, is when one is 7, 8, 9 years old, has 200,000 something miles on it, is roll over to a new vehicle at that point. And so that's why our oldest one, I think, is a Chrysler 200, is our oldest vehicle. I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I forget how old it is. I don't know if you know off the top of your head. I want to say that 2012 is the oldest vehicle that one of our investigators will be driving, and so that's why I'm asking for a new vehicle, is to replace that.
I also see that there was an increase. Let me make sure I have this correctly. Oh, you were talking about the positions. You were requesting one more position for $49,000 a year. I saw it on the requested positions that was at the end. Did I get that correct, Brittany? At the end, it said the DA needs one position for $49,662, or did I look at that wrong? Yeah,
The administrative
tech clerk.
tech position.
I guess that's that's for the administrative position to add. And I guess when you say it's an increase of $207,000, I think the vast majority of that is the vehicle and the personnel costs. I mean, the rest of the budget is pretty minimal behind that. But right, and I don't know if I forget what grade that was. Step 6? Right. That amount includes, that's the full cost of the employee,
Yeah,
not
that's
the salary.
benefits.
Okay.
That's
Right,
benefits.
yes, yeah, okay. So yeah, if that answers what you were asking, is that's not the salary, that's the full cost
Okay,
of the employee.
And hope we'll get some relief in the gas, because thanks to our state representatives, they actually voted to decrease the gas. You see it going down now. That's why it's going down. So thanks to that, they removed the taxes from your gas. So hopefully we'll see some relief in that really soon. It's not $5 anymore, it's like $3. So that kind of saves us some kind of relief on the gas. So
Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation today. Very thorough, very detailed. I did have a few questions. Of course, one was in regards to the $228,753.09 increase. But I think with going through the packet that you gave us, as well as I did see you go, those line items that did increase, you did kind of go through and explain those, so that actually did help. So thank you for doing that. that answers some of my questions. You touched on earlier about what's going on in our community. I've been getting a lot of calls lately in regards to that. And so I even had a conversation with our sheriff a couple of weeks ago in regards to it. And you said that you and the sheriff's office and I think our judicial center are working on a strategy and a plan to come together to kind of help address these concerns that are going on all across the county. As a matter of fact, I just received a notification about a shooting last night out at Mountain View off of 162, and they were saying that this is the third time that that's actually occurred. And so with that plan that you all have, are you all planning on having some type of, I guess you can say town halls or forums, or are you willing to come to commissioners' events to kind of start reassuring the citizens that Newton County is a safe place to
Right.
live?
Yes, and I will say is from our discussions, I don't think I've gotten to that point yet.
Okay,
But I don't see why myself, the sheriff, Chief Cotton would have any problem doing that. I think that's an important thing too, because a lot of these cases, the issue is, a lot of these shootings haven't come to my office yet because no one's been arrested. They haven't been solved. And that is obviously a law enforcement, that their job is to investigate the original thing, but that is assisted when you have that support between law enforcement and the community, that relationship, because I'll be honest, that's sometimes an issue.
Right.
People don't want to talk. People have this impression sometimes the law enforcement is not here to help, but they're the ones that call. These are situations, this isn't like a drug stop where someone pulls somebody over. This is somebody calling 911. And sometimes it's not even the person who got shot, it's neighbors. I mean, I'll be honest, there'd be times people get shot and don't even call the police sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think you're right, is that's going to help all those cases not just be solved, but also be prosecuted and justice be done because we have that better relationship with the community. And people understand, hey, look, like, come to us, we're here to help, and that's what we're here to do. So absolutely, and any way we can do that, I'm all for. A lot of the community events, the difficulty in that is also when my office is trying twice as many cases than we've ever tried before. It's hard to do that as well when we're also, we can't not be in court trying the cases that are up for trial as well.
Right.
And so doing both of those is a tough thing, but it is still something that we can't ignore. It's something that's important for sure.
Sure. Well, I was just gonna throw my assistance out there if you all ever, because I know I have some District 2 citizens that have been reaching out to me, asking me about this area of concern. And so I would love to do everything I can to partner with that team that you're referring to,
Right.
with you, Sheriff, Chief Cotton, so that I can also, as a leader in the community, help get the word out to our residents that you all have a plan, you have a strategy, you're working towards that, and we are all working together as leaders to help address that concern. And it's not just a one area problem.
Right.
We all work together as a team to come up with a solution to help address the concern. And so anything that I can do and be of assistance to help, because I know the District 2 citizens that I've been getting calls from are very, very adamant about shootings. I know over the past month and a half, I've gotten about 6 calls specifically about it. And so I want to help address that concern wherever I can be of assistance also.
And I will tell you, I've been, ever since being in office, I've been very open with giving out my cell phone number. I've got it in this packet at the end.
Okay.
If someone calls you and has questions,
Yeah.
give my cell phone number. Tell them to call
Okay.
me. If somebody is angry, I've had people calling up the county angry about things. I don't mind. I'll deal with whatever. But
Okay.
feel free to give my cell phone number. That's what I'm here for, is to help. I will, and I appreciate the comments about the budget that we presented. I think all of the line items and everything, we put in there very specific, the reason for those costs. And I want to, a lot of that has to do with my office manager, Ms. McDonald, who did most of that. So
Right.
some of the credit you were giving, I want to make sure she gets a lot of that credit as well for that.
Thank you.
So she does a great job with our budget and everything. So anything else?
That was it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all very, very
Greatly
much.
appreciate
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, Brittany?
I just want to say a quick comment about the increase to his budget.
Okay.
The personnel, the 2 new grant-funded positions are showing up in his personnel line item. So you will see that that is a large increase in the personnel from 22 to 23, but that amount will be reimbursed by the grant. So even though it's there, we're going to get reimbursed for it.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all very much.
Appreciate it. Next, we have Mr. Tommy Davis. Sir, if you will come on up. Huh? Yeah, right on time.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
The coroner's budget has always been pretty simple to follow. We don't require a lot of money. The budget itself that's proposed, I can get to the right page here. Just over $100,000 is all we're looking at for our office. There's some reductions on there, but that comes from some changes that happened along the way. You've got a reduction in telephones and things like that. We use Steve Jones as my deputy coroner. Steve and I use personal phones. We don't use county phones, so that's a reduction. Training was a big reduction. The staff reduced back down to Steve and I, so the training would just be for Steve and I. We did leave a little money in there if we did put on another person, that training would be provided, which we have to do. And that's really about it. We had a general operating expense reduction of about $4,000 over the years. But I think we're in track to always stay in budget and try to return a little money along the way. So.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, guys? Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. C. The question I have, I don't want to talk about maybe the past, but
That's right.
I think we had, and I remember running, and he had talked us into kind of somewhat redoing the old facility over at the jail, and we had set money aside. I think it was, how much was it? I want to say about how much? 50,000. Yeah, it was to redo the I guess the county coroner's facility, and so I guess I'm asking, where might that be at, that particular money, or is that a part of this budget too as well?
You asking me or you asking?
Well, I'm asking
Sheriff?
somebody. I mean, I understand that
What
you
I
here.
understand, Mr. Henderson, is that the money was given to the previous coroner
Absolutely.
by Ronnie, was voted on and granted.
Yes.
And when she left office, the money was still in the budget. But at the end of that budget year, those funds went away. They were not used during that time, so the money was still in the budget when I took over, and at the end of that fiscal year, those funds were still there and were returned to the general fund, is my understanding.
Okay, so, yes, sir, and thank you, Mr. Davis. Brittany, how did that work as far as, I guess, overage or money's not used? Is that a part of this budget that we're talking about now, or how does it work?
So, and I mean, I could be recalling this wrong, but my recollection was the money was not just specifically for the jail, it was for supplies. There was like, it was I think a variety of things it was for.
Yeah.
And so it did go, there was a budget amendment done to put it in the budget. And then if it wasn't spent by the end of FY21, then it would have rolled into fund balance.
And that was going to be used, they were going to move their office over to the old schoolhouse building, over where dispatch was, across from the school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because
Yes.
the actual morgue facility is actually owned by the sheriff.
Okay.
That's his facility.
Yes, sir, Ms. Davis. And the reason why I was asking that particular question, because I guess I need to know, or maybe we need to know, as far as how much money was put back into the general fund or put back into the fund balance or whatever you want to call it.
That'd be
And so
Brittany
we can
question.
keep a track of what happened,
Oh,
because
shoot, yeah.
we need to know. Because I was thinking, my own personal little thought was that the money rolled back over to you, the coroner, and was a part of this particular budget that you were talking about, the $100,000 budget.
No,
Which I know is
those funds were
very much needed.
available during that year.
Right.
But they were not used by the previous coroner or by
Right.
myself. So they were still there at the end of
Right.
the fiscal year. And then those funds were returned to the general fund, I guess, is what you're
Right.
asking.
Correct.
But
Yes, sir.
that's outside of the coroner pay scale,
Yes.
I'm sure you.
Yes.
I don't know about all that.
Thank you, my friend, Mr. David. And so I guess this goes to Mr. Sims. Could you make that information available to me as far as how much money was given back to fund balance? I call it fund balance, you know.
For this particular year or for by department?
Well, I think it was last,
No, he's.
you
he-
tell me, Brittany, I mean,
No,
you,
he's talking about just for.
Last fiscal year,
Yeah,
which
for
would have
her-
been FY '21.
right,
Yes.
I can pull a
We
report.
can provide that for
Okay.
you, sir.
thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Judge.
Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Just one quick question.
Yes, sir.
How many individuals are currently in the coroner's office now? Is it just you and the deputy coroner?
Correct,
or are
just
there any
myself
other
and
individuals?
Steve Jones, my deputy coroner. He came back on staff with me when we were appointed to serve again.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
All right, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Sanders.
Yes, sir. I noticed that, I remember the morgue was not working or functional. So how is the morgue now? Because I know there was some issues and
Right.
there,
The morgue was always working. There was some confusion there. The thermostat on that morgue, the sheriff had put a brand-new unit in, and the thermostat was actually inside of that morgue, inside of the operating door there, not on the outside of the door. It was inside. When you step into that cooler facility, you look on your right, Chairman Baines had been there, and there's a thermostat there. That's where it operates from.
okay,
When I took back over, I spoke with Brandon SQ, who's over maintenance for the Sheriff's Department, and I asked him, there's an alarm on that morgue. And I asked him if the alarm had gone off any time during that 5-month period. He said one point it got to 42 degrees. He went over and the morgue door had been left open, the actual cooler door. So when the temperature got above, I think it's 40 degrees, the alarm triggers and it sends them in maintenance at the Sheriff's Department a message. They go check on it immediately. And that was the only time that the morgue had not functioned.
okay,
And it was functioning, it was just the door was left open and allowed the temperature to rise.
okay.
Commissioner Hayes.
First of all, thank you. If I didn't say that, I'm saying it now for what you do, for Newton County.
Yes.
Years past, we had talked about indigent burial. And, you know, we purchased the property at the end of Carroll Street. Do we still have, I guess, bodies, the lack of a better term, in the morgue that right now may need to be buried somewhere?
We don't have any unclaimed remains now. We have several over the years that the person was cremated along the way. I think there's 4. But that's been a period of time, for a long period of time, that has taken place. Those remains can be buried in the indigent cemetery that we've discussed. The holdup on the indigent cemetery is just simply establishing the rules and regulations for that cemetery.
Right.
You have to know how you're going to number the graves, where that numbered catalog is going to be kept, where the graves will start, what direction they'll go, what markers will be allowed, what won't be allowed.
Right.
There's a lot that goes into it that we haven't ever addressed.
Right.
And then there's been some comments about defects actually taking over that process, the unclaimed remains or the indigent burials. Right now in Newton County, the way that works is an indigent person, the funeral home that handled their care makes application to Ms. Jackie downstairs, and then the commissioner for that
Absolutely.
district where they live would then approve it to be paid, and all we pay is $300.
Yes.
And we give that as an assistance to the family, to the funeral home that cared for them. There's not a lot that the family can get for that $300. We've talked about it in the past of raising that to maybe $1,000
Correct.
when it's an application, but we have to establish the rule of application. Who establishes if the person is indigent, and then
Right.
who grants or denies that money.
Right.
Those are things that are outside of the coroner's office. But defects, they do an indigent situation, you know,
If-
for medicines and so
Yeah.
forth.
If I could just interject just a little bit, and then, you know, I just say this and we just get ready
Yes.
to move on, was that at that point, before everything changed with the coroner, we had said there was gonna be a tripart committee, yourself, Mr. Lackey and the commissioner whose district that the indigent property is would then get with you, and then you set up the rules and regulations. I think you had said something like $1,000, and we're gonna run that past, we want to make sure the board knows $1,000. And they still would make application. Any commissioner would know whether or not they want them, whoever it is, to participate in that, make application to you and then to the other two board members, so, because we don't want to be too complicated.
Not to me, but to Ms. Jackie.
Well, yeah, to Ms. Jackie,
Right,
and then she
yes.
would lay it to us, and then in return, we would put that person there. But with just one last thing that we had suggested, I know it's been a while for you, it was that no numbers, there had to be a name. Because I just felt like, and that you felt, and I know I felt like, that that person was a living human being, and then there should be a name at the head of his or her grave, or the child's grave, or whoever.
And if you do that, one of the things that we have to establish in our rules and regulations is who's going to bear the cost of that marker, right? So those are the things in the rules and regulations that could be established.
Absolutely.
You know, and then who's going to dig the grave?
Absolutely.
Who's going to maintain the cemetery? Where's the first grave? The most important grave in the cemetery, not the occupant of the grave, but the grave itself. Once it's established and once that grave is dug, it sets the standard for the rest of
Absolutely.
those graves, right? So we have to be very clear when we get to that point that the first one is done properly. Are we going to require an outer burial container? Are we going to require casketed, burials? Are you going to allow green burials? There's a lot that goes into it that we need to discuss before we have the first burial.
So could you, if you would, make a come back at some point and make a suggestion to this board as for how we might handle it in the best and efficient way. And I'm just in with this, I'm gonna be quiet and shut up. I never forget the time that you and I cried when you stood up there and you said that everybody deserves a decent burial, no matter who they are.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I have been willing to meet since 2008. That's when the first time I was asked about that, and we can get there. That's not a big hurdle to climb, but we need to get over that hurdle and move on with it because we need to get that established for the citizens of Newton County. Sure do. But you got to have those rules.
Commissioner got one more question.
Yes, sir.
I got one last question.
Mhm.
Can you tell us on an average about how many calls you're taking per month?
Per month, I can
Yes.
give you what we did last year.
Okay.
We did like 318 last year was a total.
So 318 per month.
318 cases is what we worked last year.
Okay.
We're at 83 for the year now. As of last night, we had another call out last night. So 83 for the year as of today.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Greatly
you, sir.
appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
Judge Branch. Thank you for being here today.
How y'all doing?
Doing wonderful.
Y'all got the busy jobs today. We just come up one at a time. Goodness gracious, y'all listen to this all day. All right, y'all know how to bring my glasses because I can't see anything. All right, it happens. I don't have too many changes, I can tell you. And I'll just go through briefly just the real basic changes because, and moving right along away from personnel. So if you'll look at the first thing under professional contracted services, we had budgeted last year $20,000, and I'm decreasing it $5,000 to $15,000. That generally pays for things like our interpreters. We've got some on-call people because we run 24/7 for law enforcement to call us. It's hard to sometimes predict how many interpreters I'm going to have each year, but we didn't do that many this year, so I'm going to decrease it $5,000, and then next year I'll see if I can further decrease it, if we're kind of right where we need to be. Indigent defense, it's basically it's defense counsel, it's attorneys. We're going to be right on target to be right at $240,000 for that, and that's for every parent that gets an attorney, every child that gets an attorney for especially our dependency cases with DFACs. And I'm asking to increase it $6,000. The reason is because when I was audited for our family treatment court, or accountability court, they made the recommendation and said that we currently have one attorney that serves as the guardian ad litem for that court for the children to represent their interest. But we are also supposed to have one that represents the parent that happens to be in the program for due process rights, for sanctions and things like that. And our base pay that we pay for the whole year is $6,000 for the guardian ad litem, so we just assumed we would go ahead and pay the same thing for the parent attorney. They appear for staffings, and I have that in court today at 3 o'clock, and then they, and for court at 4 o'clock. And we meet every other week. So that's the cost of that, and that's why I increased it. If you'll move down to medical exam, it has been, I guess, consistently budgeted throughout the years at $3,000, but we haven't been using it. I'm not sure, I'm so afraid to get totally rid of it because I'm afraid something will come up, but I decreased it $2,000 because I haven't really had to use it. And obviously, when we don't use things like that, that goes back, I was talking about some of that money that would go back, goes back into the general fund. Don't really know if I'll use it next year, but I'm just having it there in case something happens with maybe one of my kids in DFAC's custody. They need some kind of evaluation that DFACs won't pay for, or like they can't, or we just get in some kind of pickle, sometimes neurologicals or things like that. So I'm gonna just keep it there in case. Repairs and maintenance for the building, we increased that $3,000 because we realized that we'd had some billing in there earlier it's basically for our community resource building, the one that's over there by Viewpoint in the library for some cost over there. So we increased it $3,000 if we need it, because we had been pretty much at zero there. The only other items I have, advertising, I really don't do any, so, or that I'm aware of, so I just took that out of the budget. It was $500, so decreased that. Printing and binding, we increased $600 because when I was talking to Brittany, we realized that I guess between business cards and pamphlets and different things that we use for like our accountabilities in courts, and I guess the cost went up, I guess with inflation and everything, so we did increase that $600. Dues and fees, was increasing. That's for, you think of everything from our bar dues for attorneys and, I don't know, dues and fees for every type of thing that we're certified or licensed for. I increased it $800. The main reason is because I know for the two of us judges, for Judge Edgar and myself, we're each getting, our dues are increasing $250 with the council for juvenile court judges, so that's at least $500, and then I was giving a few $100 just for wiggle room in case anything else comes up or inflation comes up, so that's why. But I know we're having that. And then other contracted services, we increased it by a little over $2,000. I realized when we had an issue with our sound system and everything that was going on in our courtroom, to get those people to come over and even look at it, it was gonna cost $600 just to put their foot in the door. Luckily, we were still under warranty, but our warranty will be expiring, so I wanted to at least have a little money in there in case something goes wrong. If not, obviously they come back to you, because I didn't realize how expensive it was to service those. I looked at a service contract, by the way, just so you can die of shock like I did, and for an extended warranty and for 3 years, it was $44,000. I decided no thank you. So that is really all that I have. I don't really think there was a big difference, that big of a difference in the budget. And I wanted to thank y'all again for everything last time we were here with our truancy officer. We'll start interviewing for that soon, but that's really all I have. Do y'all have any questions for me?
Thank you so much. Guys, y'all have any questions?
No?
No?
Okay, well,
Thank
y'all have a great day.
You as well. Thank you so much. Guys, it shows we have a break until 3:30. Oh.
That might be Miss Christine's. I'm gonna take that back over to the courthouse. I bet you that's hers.
Yep.
She was sitting next to me. This little green phone right here.
So,
If not, I'll bring it back to you. But I'm pretty sure it's hers.
it shows we have a break until 3:30, guys.
It is hers.
I guess we're gonna take a break to 3:30. Yeah. 3:30. Yeah. 3:30. Yeah. That's the 3:30. It's Anthony Carter. Yeah. Yeah.